Here's 17 truths about music production that no one's really talking about on YouTube. And trust me, after 10 years of producing and releasing songs, I've made every single one of these mistakes many times, but fixing them changed a lot. Let's start with the first number one giveaway that screams beginner, and most don't even recognize it. So every production is built on these four blocks: the song, the production, the mix, the master. But most beginners rush straight to the mix and skip the most important block, the song. However, most problems can be solved by taking a fine-tooth comb to your writing, looking at the rhythm, the melody, the lyrics, the chords, the structure, the key. I broke this rule myself just a few weeks ago. I was co-writing a song with two Nashville writers and we jumped into the production right away, often because we're excited about it, but we forgot to really check the song with a fine-tooth comb. A few weeks later, the song was nearly finished, but we realized it needed to be 3 steps higher to sound better. So we had to go and re-record a ton of parts, and it just wasted a lot of hours. But luckily, the next truth can actually save you many hours if you're willing to use it. By the way, get these 17 truths in a checklist and my production roadmap at the link below, totally free. So truth 2, AI tools are here to stay, and they're becoming a core part of modern music production. Tools like Automate and Kits let you make AI versions of your own voice. And Suno, it can generate full stems that are scary good. Here's an example. This Christmas track you're hearing, I used AI to create my bass in a Juno style synth, and they blended perfectly with the rest of my production. Okay, truth 3. And I used to feel totally lost in production until I started doing this one thing. So if you're just starting out, the fastest way to learn is by borrowing a map, something that shows you where to go, what to listen for, and like what to aim at. For me, that was reference songs. So pick songs in your genre that sound amazing to you and then study them using them as your North Star. So the goal here isn't just to like steal what's working in those songs, it's to recreate what works, understand why it works, and then use that knowledge to level up your own style. In 2020, I spent months recreating popular songs with reference tracks, and it gave me such a rock solid foundation of like structure and what sounds to use that I still rely on this stuff today. The next truth is such a game-changing way to think about your songs, and once you get it, trust me, you're never not going to want to do this again. So think of your production in buckets of sound: low, medium, high. And once you start arranging this way, your mixes are going to sound much more balanced. So when producing sounds, try to find a sound that could fill up each bucket. If you overload one, like stacking too many mids, your mix can start to just feel cluttered and harsh sometimes. If your low bucket gets too full, then your mix will just start to sound muddy. So let's take an example. Say I want to add a piano part, but I already have enough in my low bucket, which has like kick, bass, and a low synth. So instead of playing piano in that low medium register, I'm going to play it on octave higher in that medium high bucket. And this is just going to leave room for everything else. So let's take this piano example even a step further and talk about truth number 5. Don't only think in frequencies, like just these frequency buckets, but think in functions too. So every part you add to a song should serve, one of these 3 roles: melody, harmony, or groove. So back to the piano. Depending on what you play, the piano could be doing harmony, like simple chords, or it could also play a counter melody that maybe complements the vocal. You could even add some movement with the piano by playing something rhythmic, like an 8th note chord pattern, which adds a lot of groove. Or completely play a different set of chord shapes within the key to bring an unexpected harmony. This type of thinking in functions are all fundamental ways to keep the song sounding interesting and engaging. Let's move on to truth 6. And if you don't get this one right, your song is just going to start to feel way more cluttered and overwhelming, and people might just hit that skip button. Every section of your song should have a clear melodic priority. Most of the time, that's the lead vocal. But what happens when the lead vocal drops out? What's grabbing the listener's attention then? A good rule of thumb is not to have more than 2 or 3 melodic elements happening at once. And of course, yes, this can be genre specific, but melodies take mental effort to follow. So if your vocal is competing with a guitar solo and a lead synth, for example, it's too much. Listen to my song Everywhere Here, and let's listen to an example. We got drums, bass, that's my low bucket. Piano, that's my mid bucket doing harmony. Then banjo and guitar, that's the mid, high, adding texture and a second melody as well. Then we have vocals, that's kind of full range, low, medium, and high, carrying that lead melody. And then we have this whistle on top, which is the high bucket, but it only plays when the vocal stops. That's the key. Let your melodic elements take turns, and your song can be full of melodies, but as long as they don't fight each other. The seventh truth is one that, especially if you're a beginner, you're likely wondering a lot. You're probably asking yourself, are the stock sounds and instruments in Logic good enough to use? Or do you need to drop a lot of money on other plugins to sound pro? Here's my take. If a sound you're using is not too upfront in the mix, like maybe it's a background piano holding down the chords, or just something not maybe a priority, then Logic sounds are totally fine. But if the sound is a lead element, like maybe you have a piano ballad and the piano is up front and center, and you want it to be the main thing, then it's probably a good idea to invest in a better sounding piano than the one that you get for free in Logic. So think about upgrading parts that you want to have stand out. Okay, truth 8, which I think is probably the most important part to your production, the vocal performance. Trained singers can deliver a take in minutes, right? But most of us, we're gonna need a little more time and work. And even if we have the perfect vocal chain with EQ, compression, reverb, whatever, if our emotion isn't there, none of this matters. So here's how to get a killer vocal performance. Step 1, make sure the key fits your voice. You might need to raise or lower it. And that's why we fix the song first, right? In truth number 1. Step 2 is warm up. Do a few relaxed takes before you get in the zone, before you go all in. Step 3 is record at least 5 takes at first, and then comp together the best lines into one great performance. And if you're not loving it at the end, no stress. You can always do it later. You can also hire a singer or even try an AI vocal. The goal here is always to serve the song and not your ego. Truth number 9, which will help you stand out from the crowd. And we all need a little bit of that. These days, anyone can produce a track, but creating something memorable, that's still tough. And that comes from finding your unique sounds. What's a sound that only you can think to use? Could it be a weird percussion loop? Maybe you recorded from tapping a mug or something, or a field recording you did outside or in your kitchen. And no, to create these unique sounds, you don't just need to go and record everything. You can also curate combinations of loops and samples too. So here's one of my favorite tricks. I love tiny moments from vocals, whether that's like a word, a small sentence, a breath, a tail of a reverb on a vocal. And I love to turn it into a sample that acts as an instrument, like this. Let's move on to truth 10, which is really going to set pros from beginners. Pros here, beginners here. And it's the 3D mix. 2D mixes sound cheap and 3D mixes sound more expensive. And for me, all of my early songs were very 2D. So here's an example of how to think in 3D. Well, let's say I'm producing this lead guitar part and it sounds like this. Now, most beginners stop there. Got my lead guitar part, add some reverb, whatever, sounds good. And technically, it sounds good. There's nothing really wrong with it, but there are some ways we can make it sound more interesting. For example, to add depth, we can layer in another guitar with a subtle harmony maybe, or add a different instrument with another type of reverb on it, which gives it more texture. It's not really just blindly stacking sounds, but being intentional with these layers to create that 3 dimension. So before it was this. And now with more 3D, it sounds like this. Okay, truth 11, which is the most underused tool I notice beginners skip on all the time. It's distortion. Distortion isn't just for like rock guitars. It's a tool to add texture, grit, Also, instead of cranking the volume, you can just add a touch of distortion and it can make it sound way more noticeable in a mix. So let's use the same guitar melody that we talked about from the earlier example. And first, hear it in the mix without distortion. Now listen with the distortion added and hear how it pops more. And we're not touching the volume fader. We're adding distortion, which essentially gives it a little bit of gain, but it's also breaking up the signal and making it much more present in the mix. Okay, True 12, which is usually always an afterthought, but could be the main reason why you don't like your song. A lot of us aren't drummers. I'm not one either, so we default to the yellow Logic drummer and we let it do its thing. And while the Logic drummer is cool, it needs your direction. So don't treat your drums like an afterthought. Instead, start with a pattern, like using the Logic drummer. Don't worry about the sound. Focus on the feel first. You can match it to your chords. You can follow it with a groove here too. Think of Logic drummer like a sketch, not a finished part. And then swap out the sounds after if needed. Because yeah, Logic does have its limits sound-wise. That's why I do always recommend, if you're gonna have a lot of drums in your songs, you should probably get a good drum library like Splice or Addictive Drums or Native Instruments to take it even further. Okay, Truth 13, and if your songs feel static or robotic, this is probably why. Automation is what makes your production feel alive. It's gonna add a lot of movement, contrast, and energy. It's my favorite part in the production process. So you can really be that conductor in your mix, and you can think of automation as not being so one gear, but having elements and tracks that only appear in certain sections, like this delay automation here. I've got a delay bus set up with a 4-inch shift, a delay plugin, some reverb, and an EQ, but it's not running all the time. I've automated it to only kick in on certain select vocal phrases. And this creates kind of a bit of interest and contrast. It's a separate track in a way. Well, it is. Let's listen. So without automation, yeah, your mix and your song is going to stay in one gear. But with it, your track starts to breathe. You really can't skip on this one. It's one of the biggest missed opportunities I hear in a lot of beginner productions. Okay, Truth 14, which doesn't have to do with making music at all, but has everything to do with the feeling. Do you feel inspired when you walk into your room, or does it have like a weird smell or flickering fluorescent lighting? The vibe of your space affects your energy, and this is going to affect your sound. So design your room to make it fit you, whether that's like dim lighting, natural light, plants, a basement. Just make it feel like you're excited every time you step into that room to make music. My room, I love coming in here. It's just my vibe, and I'm always like keen to start creating. Okay, Truth 15, I call this one the body test. If your song doesn't move you, why would it move anyone else? You're the creator. It has to move you. So when you hit play, are you instinctively like bopping and grooving with your head? Are you getting goosebumps or shivers in the chorus? If not, you might be missing something. But here's the catch. This is only going to work with fresh ears. After 8 hours of listening to your song, you might lose objectivity and okay, you might be bored of your song because you've been listening to it for 8 hours. So come back the next day, hit play. Are you vibing? Are you feeling it in your body? If not, don't fix the mix, fix the song. Okay, Truth 16, which is a trap I get caught in all the time. When you're producing, don't get caught up in the mix, but focus purely on the song elements that make it pass the body test. So watch out if you're deep into any adjusting volume faders too much. This could be a sign that your production is done and you actually need to like work on the mix now. But it could also mean you're trying to fix the song with plugins, but plugins won't save a flat arrangement. Producing is about sound selection, arrangement, and dynamics. Don't get stuck polishing something that still needs building. Okay, truth 17. Want to know if your track actually sounds authentic? Try this simple test I use, and I actually do this on every song, and you might laugh, but it works. Mute the vocal and then play your song. If your foundational track sounds generic, like one of those licensable audio tracks that, that people use on YouTube, the kind of stock music, if it sounds like one of those, like this as an example, in almost all cases, this comes from using too many stock sounds and not spending enough time on developing authentic sounds and basically ignoring all of these truths in this video. So if you want to get serious, watch this video here and I'll run you through a real life example of a song that I created from scratch and released on Spotify, following all these rules and making something authentic. See you there.